Hey guys, welcome back to the Real Estate Talk Show, Home Buying 101 with Sebastian Cordoba, Mr. Clear to Close. Guys, I am super excited because we have a very special show for you guys today. I have a very special guest, Jonathan Bolano from the Bolano team at Realty One Executives. Guys, we're gonna be talking about very important stuff this episode. You cannot miss it. First, we're gonna be talking about common mistakes that home buyers and sellers are making during the process of buying and selling. Right? Also going to be talking about the process of buying a home when you're dealing with a realtor and when you're dealing with a loan officer, generally speaking. But I think the biggest topic, the biggest question of the year, guys, which we're going to be talking about is right now a good time to buy? Does the market right now indicate, is it a good time for you to invest some money into real estate? Guys, we have some very interesting information for you today. So please tune in and thank you guys so much. Guys, very excited. I want to invite my very special guest, Jonathan Bolano from the Bolano team at Realty One Group Executives.
How are we doing today?
Excellent, Jonathan. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on and asking me to be part of this with you. I think this is super important information for folks to be hearing right now because there's a lot of commotion. There's a lot of objections with whether or not it's the right time to buy or sell a house. So I'm excited to talk about this today.
Exactly. I appreciate it, Jonathan. Thank you for coming out. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yeah.
We're in the 2023, guys.
Yes.
And yes, the biggest question that we're hearing is right now the good time to buy, right? So me, as part of the mortgage world, or as any mortgage lending, if you were to go to a mortgage lender, yeah, the rates are actually starting to go down, which is alleviating what we call debt to income ratio, right? How much can somebody afford? It's all about how much monthly mortgage payment can you afford in relation to your income. So what we're seeing is the interest rates going down, which helps people increase their purchasing power a little bit, right? So, I mean, that's what I'm seeing on my side. But Jonathan, I mean, you're in the real estate. You generally speaking as a real estate agent, what's going on? Is right now a good time to buy?
So yeah, so right off the bat, right now is the best time to buy with rates coming down and prices coming down as well to some degree because people are still kind of reworking their prices. They're working with their local professionals, the realtors that are in those areas, and they're trying to adjust to the way the market is right now. So there's little dips and valleys where you can kind of sneak in and get good value for these properties because people were thinking the rates were going to come up. They were underpricing the houses. They were trying to get them out ASAP before the rates went any higher to get that top number. Then the rates kind of came down in the middle. You were able to set up with the right rate, for you. And get into the property for a really good number. Plus, when it comes down to it, the best time is actually when the rates are a little bit higher. And the reason why I say that is because with the prices being lower, you buy in at that number. And if the rates ever go higher, then at least you got in at the right time. But if the rates ever do go lower, now you got the low price and the low interest rate, which most people don't think about. You get the rates, the prices of when we first got into the 3% and 2%.
So what you're saying is magic. So I mean, you're purchasing, okay, because it's a little bit of a less competitive market.
Correct.
Because the rates are higher, people have kind of pulled out, so you have the opportunity to kind of take advantage of the buyer's market, if you will, right?
Yes.
You can kind of negotiate a little bit. And like you said, in the future, if the rates go down, what you do, you refinance. Now what you're doing is just minimizing that monthly payment, making it more affordable for you.
Correct.
And at the same time, if you see how the market is going, the idea is for that value to already have gone up as well.
Yes.
So you're putting more money in your pocket.
Correct, 100%. And then on the flip side from like a buyer or a seller and going more into the investor side, if you're looking around, doesn't matter if it's Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Florida, there are investors all over the place flooding the market with money. And I think that speaks to something that a lot of folks don't really think about. Okay. And it's why are these folks doing this? If the market's so bad right now, if it's really such a bad time to be purchasing a property, why are these investors flooding the market with all this money? Yeah. And I think it says something to us.
That's right. I think what you're saying is investors, in which maybe what any first-time home buyer has to look at this process is look at it as a long-term investment.
100%.
Right? We're not trying to become rich off of a short-term, unless you're doing a fix and flip, which we can also do, and that's a whole other game. But when you're looking at buying property to hang on to it and look at a long-term growth, create some wealth.
Yes.
You have to look at the bigger picture. You cannot focus on, hey, what's next year? I want to sell it. No, let's invest. Let's take some time to analyze, right? So awesome. And one other big thing, especially if people are renting. I mean, I've seen some crazy amount of rents, right? So for example, $2,800 monthly rent. I mean, guys, anybody who's paying that type of rent, I mean, that's a nice mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And like you're saying, you're investing a little bit of money, the minimum down payment that you can put in, depending which loan program you qualify into. Speak to your local, bank and your lender. I'd
Right.
also be happy to reach out. You can have my contact info at the bottom. Reach out. But the important piece is first figuring out, first if you qualify, right? Second, up to how much, and working with the right team.
Correct.
Okay. So talking about the rents again now, if you compare, you're paying monthly rent, you're basically paying somebody else's mortgage, right? How are you seeing? I mean, the market right now, you're seeing a lot of more offers. I mean, is it a good time for you to be able to negotiate? Is it a buyer's market as we hear?
So it's depending on the city that you're in, because real estate kind of gets microeconomic to that degree.
Okay.
So that's the reason why you want to be able to work with a local professional that understands your market for where you're going to be if you're a buyer. And by working with that, you can figure out where your offer needs to be in today's market, so that way you can get it accepted. And so we do see areas where there are particular scenarios where people are still getting into multiple offers, which means that the price of the house is going up and up and up. And we tend to see that more on properties that are fully completed. There's no work that's needed to be done, and all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. So those right off the bat are still being put into that competitive war. Then properties that don't have all that work done, they're the ones that are kind of sitting and they're getting that 1 or 2 offers. But truly, when you look at the grand scheme of everything, we're still sitting in a seller's market in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, because those are the areas I can speak to.
Okay.
And it's about a 1.5 month supply that's out there right now as
Wow.
of, I think it was the end of December.
Okay.
So I mean,
Which is less or higher more than
That's
compared to
much
5 years
less.
ago? Less, okay.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
people that don't know, okay.
So we're in a really good place as far as sellers go, and the reason why that is that if you look at the numbers from month to month, and again, this changes according to the areas that you're looking at,
Okay.
But at a grand level, the ratio of sellers to buyers is similar today as it was to the COVID times when the market was going crazy, which is why you're still getting those competitive offers where people are still using escalation clauses to beat out the next person so that way they can get into a home. And the final piece of that is we still have a housing shortage.
Which brings the next topic. So I hear a lot, buyers and some of my clients are, generally speaking, is people want to wait until the market crashes, right? You keep
Yeah.
hearing. So, for at least what I see in the market with the mortgages is a lot of lenders, a lot of banks are working with landlords, with owners, mortgagees who, to make sure they keep their homes, that they're not it's not that the 2008, 2007 crisis isn't coming back.
Correct.
So yeah, the whole system of mortgages is actually the most efficient system in the United States for a consumer, because when you go into the door, the numbers that we present to you or any lender presents to you has to be the maximum amount that you have to bring to the table at the end. We have to always over-disclose, right? So at the end, it's always a lesser amount that you have to bring to the table. So that's always efficient. It's always looking for the consumer's best interest, right? So the next point here is the other question: is the market going to crash, right? So you get this asked a lot. How do you see? Do you see the inventory? I mean, for a market crash to happen, if you compare 2008.
Yep.
2007, like we were talking about, people were losing their homes, right? So those houses were up for market. The banks had to sell them quickly, right? Because they were put into a mortgage that just, was a balloon, variable. It multiplied, right? But now we see something different, We're in a pandemic. People, yes, they're losing some jobs, but we're not in that same sort of issue that we were back in 2007, 2008. So
Yes.
How do you see?
So 2007, 2008, they were giving mortgages. So it's very different than it was today. They were giving mortgages out to people that were passed away, old uncles. I don't know, just people. There was your mom, dad's, dogs, cats, baby giraffe, like just things that there were people that were cleaning houses making $10,000 a year that were getting approved for $500,000 homes. As you know, the laws around financing have become a lot more strict since then.
Yes.
And so we're not seeing that today. And where people were getting these bad loans that were backed by bad loans, which you can find in Google and such. But today, people are, especially during like COVID, we had people in these areas in northern Massachusetts where they were offering $200,000 over asking price with cash.
Wow.
And they were waiving their appraisal. They were saying that, I don't care if it doesn't appraise, I'll still pay it. They were getting beat out still, even going 200. We had somebody that I think they offered $130,000 over asking price, and they still got beat.
Wow.
They waived everything, appraisal, inspection, and the whole nine. And so those aren't bad loans at that point. These are people that have the cash to put into the property. So as far as the market crashing, I don't see that. And I think that the one thing that's saving us, more so Rhode Island and Connecticut than anything, is the fact that COVID happened. It's like the silver lining where you now have the ability to work from home. And so this ability to work from home allows people from Massachusetts that are trying to escape the Boston prices of 900,000, 1 mil, 1.5, 2 mil, et cetera, and come down south along the 95 corridor, down 495, et cetera, and start getting these lower price points where you can still find that property that they're looking for, except now you have a little more land, maybe you have an extra bedroom, you might have a garage, and now you trek over into Rhode Island. Rhode Island, you have folks that are buying houses that are 3 beds, 2 baths, 450,000, whereas in deep Massachusetts you're looking at about 800,000. So, but since you're able to work from home 2 to 3 days a week, it's not so bad.
The commute isn't that bad. It actually makes sense.
Right, and then you have the commuter rail coming into the Pawtucket, Connecticut, Central Falls area of Rhode Island, and then going out east into Fall River, you have the train station that's happening over there where you have the T going every single stop. And so what this is allowing people to do is be able to migrate a little further out from where they would normally be. They get to work from home a little bit, and then they get to use the local transportation to help them into work and avoid the traffic.
100%, Jonathan. I love what you're saying because, yes, I mean, what I saw, especially during this pandemic, is, a lot of people were actually forced out of, for example, living here in Marlborough, in the Middlesex County. What's happening is, like what you said, people can now work from home. So instead of having to live in the Essex County, Suffolk County, out in Boston, now they can easily afford a home here in Middlesex, right? Have a nice, more space, more land, have a garage, be able to work from home, make it more, make it more efficient for them, right? So what does that do? They can come in and make a really strong offer with somebody who has a very, let's say an offer, right? They can make an offer, but they can't compete with somebody coming in from, let's say, the Boston area, maybe more funds to put down, and they're willing to take a higher risk because they see the benefit in it, right? So what are we seeing is people kind of migrating. It's a wave, right? So people from Boston now are into the Middlesex, and the Middlesex into the Worcester County, right? So what do you see with Worcester? Now it's very expensive, it's peaking. So now the surrounding towns are also seeing an influx of new residents, right? They want to buy in these towns, which is bringing up the value. I mean, this is good. It's good, but the idea is right now a good time to buy? Yes, it's always a good time. The best time to buy is today. So what I always tell my clients is if you have the opportunity, okay, if you have that window of opportunity for you to be able to buy a home and invest into a home, take advantage of it. Don't think twice because in the long run, you're investing a little bit of money to have it multiply in equity. You can actually have a home. Create some memories, maybe give it to your kids, or create a cash flow when you want to buy the next property. So to answer the question, guys, as we're concluding, basically yes, right now is a good time to buy. Best time to buy is always today, guys.
And if I can add one other thing
please.
in there. If you're renting a property right now, at the end of the day, you're paying 100% interest. So for the folks that are out there that are saying, oh, well, I would rather just rent, just remember that over the course of 12 months, let's make the numbers easy for me, just because of the time of day that it is, $1,000 a month. Over 12 months, you're now into the property, $12,000? That's a down payment on some properties. And I want you to think about that you can put that as a down payment on properties and you're not going to get that back by renting this property out. Now let's go put you into a home where you're paying, let's say, $2,000 a month over the course of 12 months. Now you're at $24,000, and that's what's considered equity versus what you owe. So let's say the house is $400,000, you've now paid it down $20,000. That difference there from the $400,000 to that $380,000, which you now owe, is considered your equity. If you leave that house, even if you break even, you're still in a better position than you were if you were renting and paying someone else's mortgage off. Because at the end of the day, there's other ways that you can get more money out of that. You've got to have your own place. You have your own rules. You don't have to work to whatever your landlord is telling you to do, and it's yours. And you, like Sebastian was saying, you can always hand that down to your children, to your relatives, to friends, like whoever you want. And then the opposite side of the spectrum is if you're investing, you can have someone else paying off your mortgage for you. So where you were paying $1,000 a month, now you're paying $0. In some cases, or you're making it a lot less, where it's like $500 a month. So I mean, really, it's a great time to buy.
It's valuable. See that, you guys, and Jonathan, thank you. I mean, so this is valuable information, guys. And where can they reach you? I mean, what's the best way for them for anybody who's seeing here to reach out to you?
Of course. So if you guys are out there looking for someone or you're looking for some information, you can always find me at thebolanoteam.com. My contact card is jonathanbolano.com. So you can get my information there, my phone number, my email address, all of our social media for the team. If you have any questions in regards to anything, anything real estate related, we're here for you.
Awesome, Jonathan, and I appreciate it because that's the biggest question of the year, right? So now, let's talk about the home buying process, right? So let's say, hey, we have Susie here who's asking, hey, I want to buy a home. She comes to you first. She says, hey, Jonathan, let's say you have an open house, okay? And you have a client come to you and they want to make an offer, right? Or they want to buy a house. What's kind of the first step, the guidance you tell them? What should they do?
So the first thing to always do is find yourself a local professional, a realtor that understands the market that you're going to be in and understands what you're going to be working with. They're going to understand the genetic makeup of homes in that area because it's different as you go from state to state or city to city. They're going to understand what the offers need to look like. And they're also going to be able to tie you to local professionals such as lenders that do the right thing, where they're grabbing all of your docs up front. And that's something to be highly aware of. So because you don't want to get stuck where you're just basing your pre-approval off of a credit score. It's easier to do, but when it comes time to going under contract and actually go through the life of the transaction, it makes your life a nightmare. And it's better to be with someone that's doing things proactive. In addition to working with a realtor that has these connections, they're going to help you out with an inspector. They can help you out with an attorney, with contractors, et cetera, so that way when you get under contract, there's no stops. It just keeps pushing. It keeps moving forward. So that way you're fully taken care of during the life of the transaction. So the first thing is to sit down with a realtor, have that conversation, say, hey, I want to go buy a house. What do I need to do? They'll probably sit down and try to understand your situation and what's going on for you. Are you trying to be a homeowner, an investor? Are you trying to be just a 1 or 2 property investor? Are you trying to build a portfolio?
What kind of property, all that good stuff, yeah.
And then they can line you up with the right lenders that can, and folks, so that way you're successful during this transaction, during this process.
Like a team.
Exactly. And so, like I said, the first thing is the realtor, then they'll link you up with the lender, and then from there, the pieces just kind of get puzzled together.
Awesome. And that's important, guys. So, what you're saying is, definitely partner up with a professional in your area who knows the market, has connections, is going to be able to understand what your wants and your needs are, and is going to be able to deliver. Is going to be ambitious and hungry. And yes, also, let's say this Susie is not a pre-approved, okay? The first step also is to figure out if you're pre-approved, right? If you can buy, can you make this offer or not? Yeah. So, in this cases, guys, it's a matter of first you qualify and up to how much. That's my job, right? Is figuring this out, is looking at the income, looking at the credit, looking at your employment history, the down payment, and the collateral. What kind of property are you looking to buy? So any good lender, what they do is they also present you all the different options that you can choose from in order to purchase what you're looking to purchase. Or if you can't, then at least put you on a path right now to success. What do I need to do in order to be able to buy, right? It's pretty easy, guys. It's a matter of making that phone call, reaching out, asking the questions, and putting yourself either, hey, now I'm ready to buy because my credit is above, let's say, 580, all right? I've worked for the past 2 years, right? So I have an employment history of the past 2 years, no lapse in between those 2 years that I didn't work, right? And then the income, what kind of income do you earn? Is it W-2s? Is it 1099? Are you self-employed? All these different things are different factors that lenders look at in order to determine first if you qualify, second up to how much. Once we determine that, we say, well, the way I like to work is, hey, this is the maximum, well, this is the minimum now that you need in order to get into this type of home. Remember, I tell you what the maximum is that you can purchase and you can afford, but you have to make the decision how much you actually want to pay and purchase and afford per month.
Right, and that's something that's great when clients come to us, and most of the time they don't. But one of the first things that I do is I find out who the decision makers are and have them have a conversation about what is comfortable for this person every single month, because as we know, there are some times where a pre-approval will come back at, let's say, $750,000. Then they find out that the mortgage is up in the $5,000 or $6,000 a month type of scenario. And people just look and they say, I would never buy something like that. How would I get a pre-approval for that? Right. It's like, that doesn't matter. What matters is what can you afford and what are you comfortable with? Well, I'm comfortable with about $3,250 a month. And we say, all right, we'll go and talk to Sebastian, have him reverse engineer that into what that max approval amount is, and that's going to be considered your affordability amount. So there's your max pre-approval, there's your affordability, and then we need to create some sort of like barrier sometimes in there. So that way, if you as a buyer are looking in areas that are competitive still, you still have that room to go up if you need to go up, but you're still within your budget. And so we kind of set the expectations based on what the client's wants and needs are, because those are super important.
Yes.
We don't want to sell them a property that we're into. We want to sell them a property that they are going to be comfortable for whatever they're looking to do with the property. And having those conversations up front gets ahead of a lot of the nonsense. So yes, getting through those things is important.
Yeah, no, and that's huge. So once they're pre-approved, we looked at it and we send it back to the realtor. I mean, the process is, so just to kind of recap is, you go to an open house or you call a realtor, they say, okay, hey, let me understand your wants and your needs. Let me now put you in contact with a professional who's gonna be able to get you the financing, the pre-approval, which determines how much you can qualify up to and which areas you should be able to now look into. So, as a lender, once you're pre-approved, that's the golden ticket. I mean, that means, hey, now I can go shopping, you know? Let's go look for this dream home. But the next step from there is speaking with that real estate professional that you first connected with, that already knows your wants and your needs, now understands what your maximum amounts you qualify for. But I think the most important piece is, guys, not only focus on the purchase price, right? It's about the monthly affordability. It's the monthly payment. Each house is different.
Yes.
Right? You can be looking at 2 properties with the same purchase price, right? And you can qualify for one and not qualify for the other.
Yes.
And now, hey, Sebastian, what's going on? You told me I qualify for $350. What's going on?
Taxes, flood insurance.
Yes, because there's a different or higher monthly cost to that property, right? So when you're working with a good team, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're helping you analyze, understand, not only throwing you out there and look at this purchase price, look at this house. No, it's actually understanding your financing and putting you in a comfortable financial position, guys.
Correct.
So, okay, you're pre-approved, now you're ready to go. You're connected with the realtor. You set them up in an MLS. What do you do? I mean, do you just send them a paper airplane? What do you do?
So the paper airplane I found very effective.
Okay.
People like catching it. Sometimes they throw their kids up in the air and just watch them until they grab it, and then they come down and then they see the properties and then they get excited. And the kid just out of joy. No, so there's multiple ways that this happens. Some folks will do it through MLS. We pay for a website so that way our folks get the most updated information immediately and in a way that's more manageable. It's something it's nice to see. It works like a Zillow, but it's not. So our stuff is updated every few seconds, and it's the BolanoTeam.com website, and it's tied to the states that we're licensed in: Rhode Island, Mass, and Connecticut, and hopefully soon Florida. And people can go in there and they can heart things, they can look through the pictures, they can get all the same information that you would from MLS, and be able to determine if these are properties that they would like to go see.
So they have all these houses at their fingertips. I mean,
Correct.
basically they're getting updates. Hey, this is a new house on the market.
Immediately.
And then and now, do they get any price range, or do you set them up? Hey, this is what your pre-approval is. You only getting houses within this range, right? How does it work?
After they get pre-approved, the next thing that we do, so the first conversation that we have is usually a shorter conversation because we really just want to get to know the person. We want to find out, are we a good fit? Because at the end of the day, us as realtors, we're just guides. We're here to help them be successful in what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, you could go work with anybody, but the reason why we're here is to make sure that the communication's on point, that we can have a relationship with this person, because we want to be able to enjoy having time with these people and want them to enjoy being with us as well. Right. And so we have that conversation, and then we go through the pre-approval process. From there, once we have that pre-approval, we'll sit down with them in person, and we'll go through all of those wants and the needs. They'll go through this type of conversation right here, where we go over what's the process going to look like, what can they expect, what's it like to work with us, how are we going to operate, what are our systems, etc. And then we'll put them up onto, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a platform? Are you putting them into a CRM or like a?
Yeah, so we'll put them into our system, so that way they have their own profile where they can then go and look at properties. And we're going to send them everything that meets their expectations. So they want 3 beds, 2 baths. They want to be in this city, this city, this city.
Wow. So let me cut you off there. So basically, what you're saying is this isn't just no easy. Hey, this is let me put this on paper. I mean, what you're doing is you're tailoring around the technology that you have, right, or 100%. Any good realtor should have. You're tailoring this system to then be able to provide you listings and then basically direct you and feed you and make sure that you are up to date every day with what the market is, and and be active.
Yes, because it's super important right now with the way the market is. There are properties that go on 5 seconds ago and they're already going right now. And so we need to be able to make sure that our clients are receiving the quickest information possible, which is the reason why we use the technology that we do.
Awesome.
So once they go through seeing those properties, they determine which ones they like, and we go and set up showings. And we'll take a day where we'll block out some time and we'll say, hey, we're going to go see this, in this order. We'll go and see the properties. This is an area where it differs realtor to realtor. The way we like to do things is we like to go through the property and explain what we understand of what we're seeing. So we'll print out the sales disclosures, which is what the seller offers as far as information as they know. And then as a realtor, we've been to enough properties, we've seen enough properties where we can kind of see what's going on as well and educate our clients on what they need to know. Does the furnace need to be replaced in a little while? Does the water tank look like it's going to be healthy? Are the water pipes going to burst soon? Because there's a difference between the green blistering and the white blistering and such. So we educate them during this. Yes. So that way, when we make an offer, it's with all this stuff in mind already.
All right, perfect. So Jonathan, now they made an offer because they love the property, right? So for me, what I'm doing is I'm analyzing, I'm looking at their documents because remember, guys, you're pre-approved, but I want to make sure that every week your pay stubs are okay, your credit is okay, everything's being maintained. So when you make this offer, Jonathan is assured, or any realtor is sure that the pre-approval is solid, it's still valid, right? So you make the offer, then you schedule an inspector, right? An inspector, like you were saying, is kind of is it a second person? I mean, what does an inspector do? What's the step?
So the inspector's job is basically to educate the buyer on what the property, what's going on in the property.
Okay.
Is the roof about to collapse? Is the furnace in good condition? Does the water tank work? How about the windows? Are they leaking around the edges? Are they leaking around the seams? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they educate the client on what's going on with this home at a high level. And then if there's anything in there that needs a little more attention, such as maybe the inspector can't get onto the roof because it's a 3-family home, they say, hey, from what we can see down here, the roof needs to be replaced, but it's probably better to get a licensed professional. So they'll say things like that, where now we can go in, within our 10-day window of inspections, we can get a licensed contractor in there to say, to go up onto the roof and say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what's not going on.
So let me cut you off there. So a 10-day, explain that to me. So basically what you're saying is that there's a 10-day period where you can kind of do all this. I mean, that's something that, this is very important, guys. So when you're in the middle of a transaction, you make an offer, you're going to get an inspector. An inspector is a professional who comes in and inspects and kind of tells you, hey, this is what kind of needs to be fixed. Maybe take a look at this. But like you're saying, if they need to escalate it to another professional who really specializes in the roof, you have a certain time frame.
Correct.
Do you negotiate that? How does it work?
A lot of folks don't realize that either. They think that the inspector is the last person, it's the one-all be-all. But really, we can then take a second opinion from an actual contractor. Because inspectors, sometimes they're not licensed plumbers. They were never licensed electricians. They can just see everything at face value, and they can determine, this doesn't look right. Red flag, get a contractor out there. And the contractor might come back and say, hey, this is fine.
Okay.
But,
now, does that cost? Is that an extra cost? How does that work
For the contractor?
Yeah. If you, so for example, let's say, okay, the roof is, you need a roofer to come out. How does that work?
So so again, because you're working with a local professional as far as a realtor goes, they tend to have connections to roofers that'll come out for free.
And do the estimate for free.
Correct. And if, let's say, you do request that this be fixed, sometimes the seller will actually use that same roofer and say, hey, $1,800 to go and fix that flashing real quick, go for it.
Okay.
So, I mean, but that's your second opinion, and you provide those invoices or those things with your negotiating as far as what needs to be fixed in your eyes as the buyer.
Okay.
And then you have a conversation about what does happen and what doesn't happen. The one thing I do want to throw out there is that just because the inspector throws at you a list doesn't mean that you just take that list and throw it back on the table and say, hey, you go seller, you got to fix all this. At the end of the day, it doesn't work that way. You go through it and you pick out what the most important parts are. What's really going to impact this property? What wasn't disclosed up front? And you have a conversation around that. And that's really what it is. It's a conversation.
Wow. So, I mean, basically, guys, I mean, what we're talking about is, yes, what's the process of you buying a home, but also maybe some common mistakes that home buyers are making and sellers are making, right? So, I mean, it's something that I learned right now is basically there's a window where you can get another expert to come in and take another look at what could potentially be a problem, right?
Yes.
So that's huge. Now, do you recommend an inspection? I mean, is that something that you recommend? Is that something somebody should have? How do you advise somebody with that?
It's a little bit of a loaded question because I'm not a licensed professional. I'm not a licensed contractor. I never held any of those licenses in my entire life. So it really comes down to the buyer and their risk tolerance. How comfortable do they feel with what they have seen and what has been disclosed to them when it comes to just going through the showing portion. So it's really based on a case-by-case basis and also with the professional that you're working with.
Okay.
And I'll kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And that's good. So now where we're at right now is we made the offer, right? Now, when you make an offer, do you have to put an initial deposit or when do you actually make a deposit? I mean, how does it work?
All right, so that's a really great question, actually, because a lot of folks confuse this portion. In the offer, you talk about what your deposit's going to be, but upon getting your offer accepted, that's when you bring out that deposit number. And Depending on the price range of the property, in the times that I've seen, around 400 to 600,000 and below, you're doing about 1% of what that purchase price is, and anything above that, you're doing about 5% or more.
Okay, and that's attractive. I mean, when you're offering that, I mean, it's because it helps strengthen the offer. Or why do people put more? Yeah.
So the reason why people put more is because at the end of the day, so buyers have a lot more leverage in this than sellers do, but the buyer can back out due to inspection, appraisal, something wrong with title, and if they lose financing for whatever reason. Those are 4 quick ways that are in all contracts that they can get their money back. And if that doesn't end up being the situation where the buyer just wakes up one day and says, you know something, I don't want to buy this house, they lose that deposit.
Wow.
And so in a sense, it's their collateral against the contract to say, hey, I'm serious, I'm ready to do this, and I'm so serious that I'm willing to put $100,000 down.
I got some meat in the bone.
Correct.
I got some meat in the game.
Like, I'm really going to do this unless something really crazy pops up, that an inspection or the appraisal comes in well below, you have a problem with the title that just can't be amended, or my financing just blows up in my face.
Awesome, awesome, and that's good. So now another question that I get a lot is, what happens with that that deposit? Right? Is that part of your down payment? Do you lose it? Is it just does it disappear? No. So the pretty neat part, guys, is any deposit, any amount that you're putting up front with the offer, with the purchase and sales when you're signing, it's going to get deducted from your down payment, right? So for example, just to make the numbers easy, if you have to bring to the table after the transaction, like for example, the down payment, the closing cost, you have to bring, let's say, $20,000 to the closing table, right? But you have already put a $5,000 deposit to secure the offer, make sure that you show them, hey, I'm really serious about this, I'm locking in this contract. Means that when you get to the closing table, since you've already put $5,000 up front as a deposit, now you only have to bring 15.
Correct.
Right? So you're not losing that money. You're just putting that into basically an escrow account to make sure you're securing that property, that you're 100% committed in there. So when we get to the closing table, you don't have to bring 20. Why? Because you've already put 5 up front.
Correct.
Right? So that's huge, guys. It's very important for you to understand that. Now, we get the offer accepted. You've got your deposit in there. For me, I'm always looking at your documents. I want to see that deposit come out, so I'm continuously asking you for more documents. And that can be a pain, but got to get it done. My number one priority is making sure this thing closes, right? So now we order the appraisal. The appraisal can come out in 2 weeks. Appraisal comes in and it says, hey, Mr. Buyer, Susie, the property that you're purchasing for $400,000, it came in at $400,000, but it needs some repairs.
Correct.
It needs some repairs. So let's say you're buying with an FHA. Let's say there's peeling paint. Hey, let's say there's a handrail that's missing because it's higher than 27 inches or there's more than 3 steps. What do I do? I mean, a couple options, right? Is yes, you have to bring this to the seller, right? You have to ask to try to negotiate where the seller can try to fix it, right? Or the seller also has the right to just back out, right? I mean, for example, let's say this appraisal comes back with some repairs. I mean, what have you seen when you're on the seller side? The house comes with repairs. I mean, that's something that the seller wants to get fixed. I mean, what's the process, right? What happens?
So I'm just going to go through the normal process. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. When it comes to inspections, the seller negotiates. When it comes to appraisal, it just gets done. Now, appraisal is for the financing, and the things end up being usually minor. And if the seller is working with a realtor that has any kind of experience at all, they'll fix those things beforehand. So FHA and VA require that there's peeling paint taken care of. So scrape it, paint it. It's a quick job, easy. And then your railings, like you had discussed. Also, anything that's a safety issue. So let's say your porch looks like it's about to fall in. That needs to be taken care of because it's probably going to get pulled out. But if you already know this in mind, if your realtor had protected you up front by saying, hey, these are going to be issues, the buyer that we're going to be looking for is more conventional or cash, then you'll either fix it so that way you can get FHA buyers, or you're just going to wash that out and you're not going to accept those offers because you know maybe you don't have the means to do it, and so that way you'll just focus on a conventional or cash buyer.
Awesome. So that's great. So that's awesome, guys. So yes, now the appraisal, now we get to kind of negotiate a little bit because the seller's going to fix it. They fix it. Now for us, unfortunately, there is another cost, right? So for example, when an appraiser has to go out twice,
yes.
I mean, it's a business transaction, so there's going to be another cost for them to go out there. It's just the way the world works, right?
Yep.
So that additional cost, unfortunately, goes on the buyer. It goes on the buyer, but like you're saying, when you're working with a professional, especially on the seller piece of it, is they're already preparing. They already see this, and they say, hey, I'm going to accept this type of loan. Well, I got to make sure that there's no peeling paint. I got to make sure the handrail is okay. There's no safety issues. The flooring is all level. The roof is okay. The foundation is not cracked, right? Stuff like that, which is minor, but it's very important. So very important, guys. I mean, just to kind of recap is when you're working with a team, right? When you're working with an experienced team, somebody that has your best interests at heart, right now is always the time to buy because they're going to make sure that they get you in there and they explain everything to you from the beginning to the end, right? Reason I got into the business is I had the worst experience when I bought my first house. So I want to make sure that first-time home buyers or even investors really understand what's going on throughout the whole transaction. They can pick up the phone, give us a call. So just to kind of recap here, guys, thank you again for tuning in. But Jonathan, I mean, what's the kind of last piece you want to leave us with? How can they reach out to you? And again, thank you for coming out, man.
No, I appreciate it. So the last thing I want to leave you guys with is the most important thing when finding anybody to work with, doesn't matter what it is, communication. At the end of the day, communication is one of the things that society lacks as a whole right now, and it leads to a lot of nonsense. And if you have someone that's willing to pick up the phone right there on the spot, then you're going to be good. And so test the folks that you're going to work with. Call them on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Call them at night at 9 p.m. Who's responding? Who's not responding? And focus your attention on those. The second thing is education. Is this person just forcing you? Listen to what they're saying. Are they forcing you, or are they listening to what you're saying and helping guide you in the direction that you want to be in? Because that's what's most important. Because at the end of the day, it's about you. This is your home. This is your investment. This is your future. And you hire us. We don't hire you. And you want to put yourself in a predicament where you're going to be successful. Successful is the goal with everything with real estate. So when you're looking at different professionals to work with, communication, education, are they listening? And are you going to be successful? If you can say yes to all three of those things with true confidence, you got a good team around you.
Awesome, awesome. And that's huge, guys. So please listen, take notes, man, because get a good real estate professional, get a good loan officer, get a real estate agent who's listening, who's educated, who's experienced, who's going to pick up the phone call on a Sunday night, Sunday morning, is going to be there for you, right? It's going to make sure that your best interest is in their hands, right? So where can they reach you, Jonathan? And again, thank you for coming, man. Where can people reach out to you, please?
So again, you can find my contact card at jonathanbolano.com. So, and then our website is bolanoteam.com. So that will give you access to Rhode Island, Mass, and Connecticut. And then you can also find a lot of our reviews on Rate My Agent, on Google, Facebook, Instagram. So everything's at Bolano Team. We made it nice and simple for everybody. So it's easy to get in touch with us.
Awesome, awesome. Well, no, thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. Everything that we spoke about was great. And you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This week has been special. I can't wait for you guys to just keep learning. Reach out, please. We're here to help. And you guys, God bless. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you guys next week.